And then now I am going to connect us. Un momento, por favor. Not on my timeline. Oh, I need to edit that real quick. Bop, 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 bop. So while I am typing this in, if our lovely panelists and moderator, if you want to answer the age-old question, if you were a Polly Pocket or insert other fantastic toy, what would your signature and what would represent your accessories? So that is the question that I am posing, and I will start with Ben. If Ben was a Polly Pocket, what would be Ben's signature accessories that are on brand for you?
Well, I'm not sure I know what a Polly Pocket is. I feel like I'm about to lose part of my gay card.
Oh no, this is more like childhood. So if you were a toy with accessories, so like Barbie has the dream house or the Corvette, what would your signature accessories be?
So my signature accessory would be some sort of hat, probably a fedora. For most of my professional career, my signature thing has been some sort of hat.
Love.
So it would have to be a hat, and it would probably be fabulous.
And then Judy, feel free to go next.
Sure. I'm like Ben. I'm like, I don't know what the heck a Polly Pocket is.
Perfectly
But
fine.
you know, I'm a little older. I would say my accessory probably at this stage of my life, probably a microphone. Probably a microphone. Because I always wanted to be a background singer.
Oh, I love that.
Since I was a kid, I wanted to be a background singer that maybe had a chance to step out front and sing my solo. But yeah, I think a microphone.
I absolutely love that. And we are now live on Facebook as well as we have attendees. So just in case you're just tuning in, just to give you some background while we were working through technical stuff, I posed the icebreaker question. If you were a Polly Pocket, what would your signature accessories be? And I learned that that might not be an accessible example. So for everyone who might not know what a Polly Pocket is, I am now sharing my screen where these were the most fun as a little gay boy in the 90s. These were my go-to toys to steal from my cousins. And I would always ruin them by chewing on the clothes because I was a weird kid. But now we know what a Polly Pocket is. I couldn't leave the conversation without showing. So Q, why don't you go next before we get started?
My Polly Pocket would have big colorful glasses that you could change and a pair of 6-inch pumps.
Oh, perfect. And last but not least, Ale, what would your Polly Pocket accessories be?
I love this question because I did have Polly Pocket and I loved it because it was just like mini versions of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think mine would be a bag of chips and a dog.
Oh, I love that. And I know the exact barbecue chips you're talking about, so that makes me even happier. So thank you everyone for joining us. This was an unconventional start to the program, but I could not be happier with it. My name is Zach. My pronouns are they, them. I serve as the Director of Programs and Marketing at Stonewall Columbus, Central Ohio's LGBT Community Center since 1981. And now that that spiel is out of the way, from all of us at Equitas Health Institute, as well as Stonewall, we thank you for joining in this series. If this is your first time tuning in, we've done this series. We started in June of 2021 with just having conversations and bringing folks together with different intersectional LGBTQ identities and having an opportunity not only to share wisdom, but also to share resources and to just talk about experiences that might be a little bit more specific. So you can look at our back catalog of other sessions that we've had. We've had 2 sessions talking about the specific experience of Black women living with HIV. We've done a session talking about the health experiences of fat folks experiencing fat phobia within the health system. We've talked about trans folks and those specific experiences, lesbians and queer women, BIPOC identities, and how that gratefully is intersectional within the experiences of accessing healthcare. And we're excited to now today to have a conversation about the experiences of religion and how that can impact accessing healthcare And we're excited to frame this conversation in a way that we want to just hear people's experiences. I think that we could have framed this to be more of like an expose, or we could have had it as more of just like a very pro-religion conversation. But what we want to set the stage is to provide space where folks can talk about their unique experiences, whether that be positive or otherwise. So I'm really excited for us to get started. So without further ado, I'm so excited to hand it over to the safe and capable hands of our moderator, Dr. Ben Huelskamp. So I am going to let all of you introduce yourselves and get started on the question. So I'm now going to mute myself, and thank you again for tuning in today.
Thank you, Zach. And I'd like to say personally a thank you to both Equitas Health and Stonewall Columbus for putting together this panel. My name is Dr. Ben Huelskamp. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm the executive director of LOVEboldly, which is a faith-based organization working to create more spaces for LGBTQIA plus folks to flourish, particularly within Christianity. And if I could ask Ale to introduce themselves, we'll go around. We will go through our panel for this evening's program.
Sure. Thank you, Ben. My name is Ale. My pronouns are siya and they. I am a part of the Filipino diaspora. I'm currently settled on Taino Arawak ancestral lands. And I'm a designer for root insurance. I'm also a aspiring herbalist. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you. Judy or Q, would you like to go next?
We're both pointing at each other like, yay, good. Hi, good evening. I am the Reverend Dr. Judy A. Alston. The A stands for Ann, A-N-N. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a professor, full professor, and director of the doctoral program in leadership studies at Ashland University. I am also the associate pastor at Woodland Christian Church here in Columbus, Disciples of Christ. And anything else you want to know? I'm married to a wonderful woman for 21 years, Dr. Cynthia Tyson. And I've been in Ohio since 1999. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you.
I am Q Jones, pronouns are he, him, his, and I am the worship and arts leader at Peace Lutheran Church in Gahanna, Ohio. I am also an adjunct faculty at Capital University, and I am a lifelong Lutheran.
Excellent. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. To kind of kick us off tonight, given that we have introduced ourselves, how would folks characterize their religious and spiritual affiliations, and what's that meant to you in your life so far?
Well, I guess I can jump off here. I am. Q says he's a lifelong Lutheran. I'm a lifelong follower of Jesus Christ. That people lop into this thing called Christian and Christianity, and we can have an argument about that later. Because with Jesus, how Jesus is and how people act are two totally different things. But I've always been in the church, right? I grew up as an Episcopalian from birth till I don't know how many years ago, but I still attend that church when I go to Charleston with my father. I was confirmed there. I had my confirmation in 1978. I was an acolyte. I was an active member in our church. I went to Catholic school, so I said that's like kissing cousins. And over my life, I've always been involved in the church life in some way, shape, or form. My mother was an organist. My father was Sunday school superintendent. and in the choir, and I sing. I was singing in choirs. When I went to college, that didn't change. I party all week long, much to the chagrin of my parents. But on Sundays, I was always at church because it became a religious ritual for me. But it was something that was drawing me to. But I also knew that I had a calling on my life too. So I got that. And so I went to various churches over the years. I think I went to an AME church, African Methodist Episcopal Church, while I was in college. When I got out of college, I went to another one in a Baptist church. And in my doctoral program, I went to Penn State. And in my doctoral program, I attended an AME church and a non-denominational church in State College. I then moved to Houston, and I attended a Black Episcopal church for a while. And then I joined a very large mega church, United Methodist Church there. And then moved to Ohio and went through various churches. Sitting in a Black Missionary Baptist church as a choir director, and my wife came with me, and then it was, oh no, you can't do that here, and being sat down, right? Finding Unity Fellowship Church movement, African American gay church movement that was in Detroit, and I lived in Toledo. Actually, we lived in North Baltimore, Ohio, and would drive to Detroit. Then when came to Columbus, was UCC for a while. Still am UCC. I belong to a UCC church, but found my way to the Disciples, which really has, I think that's where God has led me all my life. That I had to take the path that I took to get to where I am, to appreciate what being a disciple really means. And I am an ordained disciples reverend. So that's been kind of my path. God is always there. It's not about religion. It's always about relationship for me, and that's what I have preached and what I've taught. Over the years, I've been teaching. This is the beginning of my 35th year teaching. And that has always been at the center of it all for me. Relationship, love and relationship and humanity.
Thank you, Judy. I definitely resonate with part of your story around, being a member of different congregations and, in different denominations. I grew up Roman Catholic myself, and just like you, have been involved in church from day one. And also at times have struggled to use the word Christian. I personally use Christian now as my faith descriptor, I guess, or word, as an act of saying, hey, Christianity is not about what we often hear in media, what is often by the people who often shout the loudest. And I agree completely that what we often hear from Christians is not what Christ did or modeled. So I try to use Christian as a kind of act of resistance against that. But thank you. Hugh or Ale, anything you'd like to add?
Sure. Yeah, I can share a little bit. So I grew up raised in the Catholic Church. My family is all predominantly Catholic, which is I'm Filipino, so a lot of the Philippines is predominantly since colonization, a lot of the religion in the Philippines is Catholic. So I was raised in that, and I was actually I was very involved in with the church. I was like an altar, one of the altar people. So I would participate in mass, not every week, but very frequently. I was also very involved in high school in a lot of retreat groups. So being a leader, leadership roles in those groups. And then going into college, I actually kind of moved away from that, I think, after realizing the impact that it had on me and how much it had kept me from my queerness. And so now where I'm at with my spiritual life, I don't necessarily have a label for it, but I am very spiritual. And I've been like really since the past several years, like post-college, I have really been, I kind of got introduced via social media actually to other Filipinos in the diaspora who were doing a lot of really deep decolonial work and re-indigenizing and like remembering of our roots. And so that led me to go on that journey for myself as well. So that's kind of where I'm at, and really just been focusing the past couple years on trying to rediscover what feels right to me now in my spiritual life, instead of what I've just been taught, and really questioning like what parts of that, what I have been taught, do I still want to keep and feel right to me. But yeah, a lot of it, pre-colonization, a lot of the Philippines was practicing animism. So what that means is that for anybody that might not know, is that like all things have a spiritual essence. So rocks, the water, so that's what I'm exploring now, and what types of rituals and practices I want to move forward with. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
I guess I can go now.
Please.
So I have a different church experience than a lot of people, and I'm very blessed at that. I was an openly queer person. I came out in middle school, and growing up Lutheran, when I started in the Lutheran church, there was a national movement happening to affirm that, to reconcile, to move that direction. So when the vote finally did come up, my church had known this queer child their entire life and had a different appreciation and different views of it than other churches might have. So that vote went through. It was almost unanimous. Almost no one left the church. And they became like kind of this beacon for other churches of like, no, like Jesus loved everyone. So what are you talking about? like it's kind of crazy. So I didn't go through that big exodus, that big my faith fighting with my sexuality and all of those things. And so I try to like use that now to help others who I know have this trauma and have these experiences that were caused by people, not by church itself or not by religion itself, but by these people who are speaking for that.
Thank you, Q. And your answer has kind of led into our next question. And I feel like we've all addressed this question a little bit, but I still want to ask it. How has being LGBTQ affected your experience with religion and spirituality? And also considering any other identities that you might hold?
Yeah, I can start this one if that's all right.
Please do.
So as I said, like my experience was very different for the queer community. And as part of that, I view my calling to help others see the truth in like religion and Christ. I love the tradition of it. I love the old hymns. I love the pipe organ. I love the liturgy. Those are all my favorite parts of a worship service. And I really, really have trouble with the number of people who were abused by that system. So I guess I feel very devoted to the church and to religion and to all of the good that it does. And then on top of that, I view it as my job to undo some of the damage and harm that has been done.
Thank you.
That's interesting. I never had an issue with the church and being a lesbian until much later, and it was I was already out. I mean, I was in my 30s, and it was actually when we lived in Toledo. As I mentioned earlier, I was a directed a choir. I've been a choir director for 30 some odd years, and I was directing the choir in the church. My wife was doing she was doing the sign language ministry with music, and they just couldn't deal with it as a black church. They couldn't. They were like, this is not right. So you can't. If you're going to be this, then you can't do essentially what you've been called by God to do. And in my mind, you don't have any authority to tell me I can't do this since you didn't give me the directive. So therefore, I will take my talents like LeBron and go play elsewhere, right? I will take this and go. And that was the thing, the journey of trying to find the place where we as a family could worship together and have our gifts and graces and talents used. Now, what was really interesting in that quest for that place was going through different kind of independent churches, non-denominational that said they were open and affirming or welcoming, mostly gay folks there, but they were mostly gay white folks, right? And we went to an MCC church in Toledo one Sunday and walked in, and we were the only black people there, and literally the whole church turned around and looked at us. and we looked at each other like, okay, well, we're gonna sit down anyway because we're here to worship. And when nobody spoke, when the service was over, we left, and they made sure that we got out of the door. They looked, they closed the door to have a meeting after we left. I thought that was interesting. Is this idea of racism in the intersections of who we are within this community that we call LGBTQIA plus, right? Because it's not monolithic at all. There's a lot of racism. There's a lot of sexism. There's just a lot of stuff going on within that larger community. And so that for me, that was the issue. Beyond that, I've not had real issues in church with me being who I am, because I'm just going to be me. My ministry is about being authentic and living my life. And if you don't like it, well, too bad, right? I'll always say to people, Jesus and I are fine. We good buddies. Me, Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, we are all fine. If you have a problem, take it up with them, right? I am not dealing with it. I'm not arguing scripture with you. I'm not arguing who I am. I'm not going to define what a lifestyle is versus who I am as a person, right? I'm not doing any of that. I'm going to do the ministry that God has called me to do, which is to walk in everything that God has given me to walk in and walk. You have love boldly to walk boldly, right? We can go to scripture. We can go to Micah right there. I'm going to walk boldly. I'm going to love boldly, and I'm going to be me. I'm going to be authentic in all of my spaces. And again, if you don't like it, well, that's too bad, because I'm not there to please you. And I try to do that with a certain sense of savoir-faire. I try to clean it up, but sometimes I'm a good cusser. Sometimes that will come on out, and bam, there you go, right? But but for me, it's always about relationship. My relationship with God outweighs anything else in life. that I can always conquer things because of my relationship with God, and that not again, I'm human like anybody else. I will get mad, but I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to be me. And the older I get, the better that gets.
Thank you so much, Judy. I really appreciate that perspective. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Judy. I started kind of getting emotional and tearing up a little bit hearing you say that, honestly, because I feel like the way that religion, or at least, yeah, the way that it has been taught to me, was the opposite. And so I feel like for me, I didn't, internally, I knew who I was. Like, I was intuitive enough to know, but I didn't have the language for knowing my queerness. And it was also so shamed out of me, or, so shamed to be, hidden and pushed down. So the way that religion impacted me growing up was, I was taught that I'm not allowed to question anything about what I'm taught. And I just have to be who I'm told to be. I have to believe what I'm told to believe. I'm not allowed to question it. And for me, like, the way that I now experience queerness, it's so much more expansive. It's not just about gender or gender expression or about sexuality, or it's, for me, it's it's seeing the expansiveness of everything, and loving and accepting who we are in the endless, infinite ways that we can be, because the number of people that there are in the world is there's like, just as many ways that we can exist. And so yeah, that I feel, for me, it it taught me to, the way that the religion was taught to me, I think, just kind of disempowered me and kept me silent and kept me not questioning anything. And so then that bled into every part of my life, to, the point where I wasn't questioning if I was being treated poorly, if I was experiencing racism and oppression, if, and then, I mean, tying this into the healthcare, it bleeds into that. It seeps into everything. So I'm just, I'm thankful now to have, through so many other people in community, in the LGBTQ plus community, have reached this understanding of myself and of the queerness and the expansiveness, and how I can still I guess how I can shift my spirituality to feel more in line with who I am.
Thank you. And Ale, I think your point gets us to sort of our next question of, if at all, has religion, or has your religion affected your ability to access healthcare or achieve a good sense of health? I wonder how folks would reflect on that.
Yeah, I can speak to this. I kind of touched on it. For me, just going back to what I was saying about, not being allowed to question things. I feel the way that religion was taught to me is that, like, I I don't have agency or autonomy over my own body. I can't question anyone who has, authority or some type of status, that type of thing, which, that's also kind of a cultural thing, but definitely also impacted by the religion piece. But for me, years ago when I was like at the peak of battling chronic illness, like I was seeking help from so many doctors and specialists, and like for years was racking up so much medical debt trying to find answers and find some relief for the pain that I was in. And I wasn't getting, I felt I wasn't getting adequate care, but that this went on for years because I just wasn't, I didn't know I could question the way that they were, or what they were doing for me, and the way that I felt that I wasn't getting provided adequate care. And that led to me, like I was experiencing so much medical racism and medical trauma, but it was so covert and so normalized and embedded in everything and everyone. So it took me years before realizing what I was actually experiencing and how it was being further harmed. But yeah, and then I feel like it wasn't until years later that I started to question, because I was just at a point where I felt so desperate and was in so much pain that I just started questioning everything about like their approach to health and wellness, and realizing that, how much the system just wasn't set up to help someone like me, I mean, I had doctors just tell me that, my partner at the time, who is a straight cis white male, I brought him with me, and then I found that the way that I was treated was so different. But anyway, yeah, that's so then once I realized, this is not set up in a way to help me. So I started questioning all of that, and it led me to expand into other avenues of healing. And then I ended up discovering so many other, BIPOC healers, two-spirit, queer, trans, Black, Indigenous healers who actually were committed to supporting me and actually understood how and the ways in which those systems were further harming me. So then started finding relief from that. I could talk more on that, but I don't want to take up too much. I want to let everyone else speak here.
Thank you so much for sharing, and for really having so much vulnerability to share in this space. I really appreciate that. I had a very healthcare for me until I was an adult was very white, privileged, Mulberry sort of experience. But my dad has worked in healthcare administration for his entire career. So growing up, any doctor that I would go to knew him, and our family physician was one of his best friends. So there was a sort of a tacit understanding that even as I was getting older and would meet with the doctor, one-on-one, there was always a sense of it might come up over, coffee with my dad down the road. I can't remember what it was. It was some minor thing I had mentioned to my doctor when I was a late, maybe 16, 17 years old, that I had to mention to my dad. And a few weeks later, my dad said, "Oh, why didn't you mention this to me?" I was like, "How did you find out?" That was a private conversation between me and my doctor. Albeit, yes, I was still minor, I think, but those things came up in conversation. Our doctor, or family physician, was also Roman Catholic. And in my nascent queerness that was definitely not out, my way of hiding was to say, "Hey, I want to be a Catholic priest. Priests don't get married. We pretty much know, there are priests who are gay. So that was sort of my way of hiding for a while. But there were a lot of things that were then sort of said, oh, you have to do this because you want to be a priest. So when at the age of 16, I was sexually assaulted by a Catholic priest, there was no one in healthcare in my experience that I could talk to about that, mentally or otherwise, because so many of those folks, A, were Catholic, and they were so ingrained in the community that my parents existed in, that I more or less existed in, that my sister existed in. And it's only recently been, kind of figuring out where that barrier was, because at the time it was just this, excuse my language, fucked up situation. But I'm resonating a lot, Ale, with what you're saying around not being able to question. Not being able to question what religion is saying, not being able to question what those in positions of authority, both in healthcare and in faith, are saying. So I too don't want to take up too much time. Judy, Q, or Ale, of course. Anyone want to add?
I would just say, and I'm glad that Ale said this. I think it stems from the whole idea of not being able to question, right? So that theme gets in your life very early as a child, not being able to question. Are we there yet? Why is the sky blue? People, they kind of play that down. You stop asking questions, and then you get into this religious business, right? And religiously doing something over and over, going to the church, right, every week. I always used to say, as an Episcopalian, we stand up, sit down, and kneel, right? we stand up, sit down, we genuflect. Okay, I've used the proper word. And if I'm Catholic, I genuflect, I cross with some water, all of those things. And there's the pomp and circumstance of all of this. It's beautiful. I loved it when we had high church, I call it, right? When we had the incense and they were dressed and everybody, it was just beautiful. We were choking to death in there, but it was the religiosity of that, because it was the expectation of this organization that we were going to be doing these things, and you do them over and over again, right? And I say this because while I don't attend an Episcopal church here, and I haven't attended an Episcopal church with any regularity in I don't know how many years, over 30 years, when I go back home and go to church with my father, the Book of Common Prayer is still there, and I don't need it because I can say the prayers. I can go right through the service, whether we are on Rite 1 or Rite 2, just as if I was there the week before, because religiously we've done this over and over. It's almost like we've been primed and set up, and it becomes rote and a part of what we do. And so it goes into when you get to healthcare and not being able, you feel like you can't question what the doctor is saying. You can't question the authority that's there. And so then you lack the agency, as Ale said, over your body. And, the truth is that healthcare providers receive little to no training on the ways that they must provide care over mind, body, and spirit and folks. And so the religious trauma that many LGBTQIA folks experience is not something that providers are often trained for or to look for it. So it's dismissed. But it's not. It doesn't just sit with the LGBTQ stuff either, right? It doesn't just sit with us. It sits with me as a woman who in 2003 had fibroids, and I was 41 years old, and I needed to have a hysterectomy, and they're saying, well, no, you can't have it, but it's my body, right? Here we are again in this whole thing where we are right now politically. This is my body, and you're telling me that I can't I can't tell you because we already know it needs to come out. But yeah, this was the thing. You might want to have kids. In what world, right? First of all, I'm 41. I don't want kids. If I wanted kids, I would have had them before now. I never wanted to have children. So that, you know, and the doctor then is having this conversation with me like, but don't you? No, I don't. I want to stop having a period every month. I don't want to walk down that aisle in the grocery store any longer. I don't want to spend my money on that stuff anymore. I don't want to hurt every month any longer. And this needs to come out. So we finally got it. But it was that, you know, that these providers aren't trained to deal with us in many ways. Now, I do remember there's a difference. I had a general practitioner when I used to teach at Bowling Green State University too. I ran their doctoral program there. And I had a osteopathic doctor as my GP. Hands down, one of the best doctors I've ever had in my life. She got her degree at Ohio University because their osteopathic program. That person took time to answer questions, and I'm horrible at asking questions. I will often have my wife write down questions, even to this day, for me when I'm going to the doctor, because it's something that when you walk in, you forget that your eye is falling out the socket, and they say, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm just fine. My eye's hanging down, but I'm okay." Right? It's that whole trauma. But she would just sit and allow that space for questions, and then she could give me answers. Now, I know that they're held by, you know, they got a bill 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but she was really, really good. And that was a big difference between her and the MDs that I saw. But it is this whole notion about agency and us owning our bodies versus the system, this religious system that imposes what it wants to impose when it wants to impose upon you if you are not a cisgendered white male of a certain class.
Yeah, sorry if I can, I wanted to add, or Hugh, if you had something to say, I want to make sure you also have time. Okay. Yeah, I actually wanted to add too that the ways that, because Judy, you said something about how they're just not, you know, they don't have the training, right, to give us the proper care. I feel like for me, what I learned through, you know, that whole experience that I shared, and then finding healers that could actually provide the care and support that I needed, was that like a lot of the training that's missing, it's like not, you can tell that it is based on, sorry, dog barking. It's really, a lot of it is based on profit, you know, and you can tell. So, you know, I just wanted to highlight the ways in which capitalism and white supremacy play into this, right? Because the way that our medical industrial complex is set up is for profit. It's not human centered. So you know, it's set up in this way because they want to keep us disempowered and disconnected from our bodies, so that we then don't have the resources internally or externally to, you know, to change these systems and change the status quo. And for, you know, I also wanted to just touch on, you know, like the healers that I did find healing from. Sorry about the dog. The healers that I did find support and relief from, I feel like a lot of that healing, it brings in, Judy, you kind of touched on this, but like, it's not just about the body, it's also about the mind and about the spirit and how everything is connected. It's holistic. And also like a lot of what I have found that has been supportive to me is that a lot of the healing methods are, at least that have supported me, are ancestral practices, right? And so a lot of that has been shamed out of us because it has been the colonization of religion, right? So then we lost so many of our healing practices. And so that's why I've been moving into that world and trying to just trying to excavate what was lost. So yeah, thank you for allowing me to share again. And thank you for the patience with the dogs barking.
I wanted to add on to the other side of that, because I think you're both like absolutely right with the spirituality and how like important the whole picture is. Sometimes church people go the other way too far. So I've encountered people in my church who come to me and they're like, oh, I have this pain. I'm like, well, did you see a doctor? She's like, no, I've been praying on it. And so we also have to remember that like sometimes you have to, yes, we can pray on it. Yes, we can do that. But like sometimes a surgeon's got to get in there. Sometimes it takes something more.
You hit it right on the head with that. Often in church, and I know in Black churches and many Black churches and in some Black communities, when you are experiencing some mental health challenges, pray about that. That's a spirit of evil. That's the devil. No, I need a pill, right? I call it needing a nap. NAP. Need a pill, right? I need a nap. I need a pill, and I need a therapist. That's outside of this place I call church on Sunday. I need a therapist, a licensed therapist who I can lay on the couch, sit in the chair, and have a conversation with, and then the medicine helps to also regulate. I have been taking an anxiety pill. I don't know how long, forever now. I feel like it, but it works for me. And I always used to say, I don't really take it for me. I take it for the world, so that if you say something crazy, I just won't go off on you because I took my medicine this morning, right? But we need to be able to have healthy conversations about going to therapy. It's just like you going to the doctor to if you have cancer, you're going to the doctor to work on that. And the same thing for your mental health. And it is about you said the colonization of religion. It is also the colonization of our healing practices that are ancestral. My grandmother, if something happened and we were sick, she would just go out in the yard and find something. I'm thinking it's a weed. In the midst of COVID, we went to see my father, and my wife was just coughing and sick, and she kept saying it. The test kept saying it wasn't COVID, but it was something. And I asked my dad. I said, "Do you have some life everlasting plant around here?" And it's an herb that grows in the wild. He went out in the garage, and I don't know where he keeps it, but he found this little brown bag and brought it back out. And I took that and put it in some water and boiled it and let it steep. And then I put some bourbon in it and some honey and a little lemon and gave it to her, and it started clearing up immediately. That is ancestral. That is, I'm a Geechee. This is what we do. Gullah Geechee. This is what we do down there in the Low Country. But those things are not honored because of the colonization of our healing practices. I was in Cuba in 2016. I went back to school to get my Master's of Divinity. I finished my doctorate in 1996, and then I wait till 2013 to 2012 to go back to school, right? But I got my Master's of Divinity from Methodist Theological School in Ohio, here in Delaware. And we had a trip that you have to take every student has to take a cultural immersion trip. And we were going to Cuba, and I've wanted to go to Cuba since I was in third grade. My Spanish teacher was from Cuba, and she used to talk about it all the time. So I had that opportunity to go to Cuba. But while there, I had the opportunity to experience some time with folks who practice Santeria, that religion, which is very steeped in Roman Catholicism. It's very close, but it's that side that has, little figurines and big figurines and water and all and incense and different things and spirit. But they try to colonize that too, but folks resisted that. And so there's the healing properties that you find in those spaces too, that you know, we who are indigenous in those worlds get it. That in growing up and understanding that that's not respected in the Journal of American Medicine, right? But then when I look at Black people in medicine, I go back to, Henrietta Lacks. See what you did with Henrietta Lacks? And the reason why we have a whole lot of healing things now is because you took her cells. Or the Tuskegee experiment. There's a book called Medical Apartheid that talks about all of the various ways in which Black bodies were used and abused for the furthering of medicine and in the healing processes. So yeah, it's about our agency and taking it back. You know, Audre Lorde says, talked about the master's tools and not being able to dismantle the master's house. I say it's not that. I got the word from Dr. Signithia Fordham, who said, the tools aren't the master's tools. These are our ancestral tools. These tools, they were taken by the so-called masters. And so I'm just taking my tools back. I'm taking back my ancestors' tools from you to use for good and not for evil.
Yes, I thank you for saying that, because that it's also, a lot of times it's also that they take it from us and then try to sell it back to us, right? So when you see, like moringa, I've been seeing that pop up more and more. I don't know, depending on your area, maybe not, but I've been seeing that pop up a lot where I am now. And in the Philippines we call it malunggay, but certain things, right? Like we see them just pop up and then just spread wildly, right? And a lot of that is because they're taking from a lot of indigenous folks or BIPOC folks and then trying to sell it back, and then obviously, of course, not offering gratitude or giving any credit or any type of of any of those profits or whatever it is back to the people. So thank you for speaking to that, Judy.
Thank you all for getting to this in the conversation. I'm quite frankly sort of overwhelmed by where we've gotten in the best possible way. So thank you to everyone. We are coming up on the end of our time, and being respectful of that, I want to go to our last question, which says this. Complete this sentence. If I could wave a magic wand and change one thing about healthcare, or I'm sorry, one thing that all healthcare providers should start doing is, so if we could change one thing that providers, practitioners are doing or perhaps not doing, what would that be?
I know my answer. I would say, just based off of my experience, for me, I would say just believing Black and Brown people when they say that they are in pain, because often they don't believe us. So we then do not get the care that we need, especially Black and Brown women and femmes, Two-Spirit people, but I want to highlight that the people that this affects the most are usually Black women. So believing people when they say that they are in pain and then trying to provide the support that's needed.
not send bills, debt collectors, all those things. I think there are so many people who are afraid to go get help and go get medical care because it's going to destroy their life. And so they'll sit there and be sick and do these things because they can't afford that bill that's coming to them. So yeah, so take the money out of it.
Yeah, that's good because medical debt is real and it can mess your credit up and mess you up. I would say respect each individual that walks in the door as an individual. Treat me as an individual, not as a monolith of a group that you have a stereotype of already. Um, just because I may look like them or sound like them. Treat me as who I am, a human being walking in the door that has an ailment. I'm a human, I'm a soul that's walking in the door. And treat me with respect and honor me and listen to me when I say I'm in pain. As Ali said, I just want to, it hurts. And so my pain is not like the woman that just left the room that may look like me.
I can't say it better than it's already been said by Judy and by Q and Ale. Thank you all three so much for being part of this panel tonight. I know that I've learned a lot just sitting here. But again, thank you all. And again, thank you to Stonewall Columbus and to Equitas for putting this together. And I am going to yield my moderation back to Zach. But again, thank you all.
Thank you, Ben. So a huge round of applause, figuratively, literally, to all of you. I think that some of the conversations that we've had today are going to have ripples that are going to positively impact so many folks. I think that you all have been incredibly vulnerable. And for that, I say thank you, because it's not easy to have some of these conversations. It's not easy to talk about some of these lived experiences, but if we can impact for the better, talking about our experiences to better impact other folks, then that's what this series is all about. And you all knocked it out of the park. So thank you for sharing space, and thank you for sharing your wisdom as well as sharing your experiences. So if you enjoyed this program, have no fear. It's an ongoing series. We're going to be having more coming at you next month, and the month after that, and the month after that, until, you know, we're not here anymore. Just kidding. But again, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. And we hope that you will join us again. So from everyone at Equitas Health Institute, as well as Stonewall Columbus, thank you for tuning in and thank you for sharing some space with us. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you